I've been wanting to give you some book reviews for management books, and I am pleased to bring you this one. This is The Purpose-Driven Leader, Navigating Ethical Challenges in a Goal-Obsessed World by Mike T. Lightner, Lightner. So he was a Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force. He had a lot of responsibility for a wide variety of personnel in the Air Force. A purpose-driven leader. The basic idea in this book is that we can get so focused on the goal that we forget ethics. And that doesn't turn out very well. So, Mr. Lightner created a new word, as far as I know, teleopathy. So, pathy means a sickness, and telos is goal. So when the goal becomes sick, and so he gives a lot of stories about when there has been a temptation to do this, and when the leader, the manager, CEO, the owner, steps back and begins to see the context and tries to solve the problem, seeing the whole picture, so that it becomes a win-win for everybody. And so, yes, maybe the goal was somewhat risked, but the wider goal was obtained. So let me give you an example here. Let me find an example. As you might expect, there are a number of stories from the military, and I'm going to give you one, and then I'm going to give you one from Volkswagen. A car manufacturer in Germany. But hold the phone before we do that. Let me tell you how important it is that you listen to management learning in other industries. I know in early childhood, if you don't come with a story from early childhood, they just wipe you off as if it doesn't matter. And it does matter. If I'm teaching interpersonal skills, you have to deal with adults sometimes and not just preschoolers. Even in the early childhood center, yes, if you have fellow workers, you have parents, and so forth. And it's even more true in management. You can learn from other people's management situations, right? So yes, this isn't a school. Yes, this is not a preschool. But the principle applies, so please listen to it. And, of course, if you are in management of a corporation, you already know this. People in corporations and entrepreneurships, they readily learn across the board. In fact, I met Mike Lightner at a God Talks conference. So here is a management consultant who is experienced, and he's going to a conference that I'm going to. I think it was pitched about for me. Somebody who is an entrepreneur but is really learning coaching and really learning marketing and sales. I'm not a newbie, but far from a master, okay? He's probably a master, but anyway, he was learning, so that's the point. Good managers are going to be good learners and will learn from people across the board. Okay, so just let me read you a couple of short portions. In my Air Force days, I saw how a leader's actions shape everything. One commander I worked with was under pressure to boost mission readiness. Instead of cutting corners, he held daily huddles, listened to his team, and made it clear that safety came first. His integrity inspired us to follow suit, and our unit thrived. That's the power of a leader that sets the right tone. See, in the military, you don't have to be a facilitative leader. Probably most of the time you can be very directive and coercive, but this guy got a better outcome. Yes? Right. And then he tells about Volkswagen. This is a cautionary tale. So Volkswagen was faced with strict emission standards from the United States. And their goal was clear. They wanted to become the world's top car maker, and so they had to conquer the U.S. market. So what they did, since the diesel engine couldn't meet the requirements without sacrificing performance, so they approved defeat devices. In other words, fake. They had fake emissions test results. So they were fixated on market dominance. So this is letting the goal become sick, teleopathy. And rationalized cheating is necessary. Well, what happened? There was a scandal, and Volkswagen faced $18 billion in fines, recalled millions of cars, lost consumer trust. The CEO resigned, the company's stock plummeted. So here we have an example of teleopathy. They were willing to sacrifice everything to get to the goal. That didn't work well. And if they had faced up to the requirements, done the requirements properly, and lost a little performance, well, they would have done better than with their teleopathy. So, purpose-driven leadership, purpose-driven leader. There are lots of stories, like most management books, and there are some good questions. And it's not too long. So I'm recommending this book, hearing about these kind of dilemmas just in the few days since I got the book. Big dilemmas, large groups, large organizations who are now stuck because they cut corners on their ethics. So don't sacrifice right and wrong. Take a big step back and try to find a way that works for everybody. The real right probably is the better way to go.